Welcome to the UN Brief. Oh no, now we are called The Brief because we are covering much more than the United Nations. We are covering politics in Europe, the European Union, the European Commission. So don't forget to hit the button and subscribe. And this week we interviewed Charlotte Tobitt. Charlotte is a press gazette in the UK journalist. Press Gazette does lots of research on the state of the art in news media and who are the ones actually surviving and thriving in terms of their business model. Like many legacy media now are launching paywalls, and they took a look at the 50 most successful paywalled news platforms and legacy media, both platforms like Substack and also the New York Times. No surprises there, so don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and listening to the UN Brief. So tell us a little bit, what did you find out? Because you were looking at the ones that are being successful in actually paywalling their content, right? Or increasing subscribers. I think that was a bit what was the intent of this research, was to be able to find out how they are thriving and surviving, all these news organizations with the subscription model.
Yeah, exactly. So we last did it in December 2023. It's something that we've done roughly every year or two for a few years. So it's interesting to be able to compare how certain publishers have grown in the past just over a year. So for example, I would say the biggest story that people might be surprised by that came out of it is that Substack, all of the publications on Substack collectively now have 4 million paid subscribers, and that's compared to 2 million 2 years ago. So it's it is doubled in its paid subscriptions in 2 years, which has taken it to second place in our ranking, which is quite remarkable, I think. There are also 2 individual Substack publications on the list, The Free Press and Letters from an American, but I think that overall Substack jumping up to second place is pretty amazing. Unsurprisingly, the New York Times is still by far in first place at 10.8 million paid subscribers.
Of legacy media, as we say, right? The New York Times is still... well, for the last decade, I think they are doing well in terms of subscriptions and converting readers, right?
Yeah, but what's interesting is that it's not. It's been helped by not just focusing on its core news product. It's also brought in its kind of Wirecutter recommendations brand. It's The Athletic, obviously that's sports journalism, but it's kind of a separate sub-brand. You've got puzzles and games, the purchase of Wordle. So actually, a third of all of its digital subscriptions are only people getting non-news products, as in not the core news products. So it might be The Athletic or it might be podcast, but not that core New York Times, what you would think of when you think of that brand. So I thought that was quite interesting as well.
That is very interesting. So people subscribe just to that product or not, or did they have access to the New York Times also? To the new...
so those ones, they don't have access. So half of all of the New York Times's digital subscriptions are a bundle or a combination. All of the rest, so the other half are kind of one of those puzzles or games or just news or The Athletic or podcasts, etc. So
and Wirecutter which is a recommendation, is an advertising tool, in fact, because all the recommendations are chosen based on what the advertiser pays, right? They are not.
I think they kind of put some journalism scrutiny into what they're testing. I think all the best publisher shopping brands do that, rather than just recommending anything that's paid for. In order to have it as a valuable brand and a trusted brand, you have to have readers know that you're not just going to say anything they have to know that if you are recommending something, you think it is worth that. And I think the best publishers at doing that sort of thing will turn down some products if they think this doesn't meet our tests and it would ruin our trust with our readers.
So right. They do test the product, so they don't publicize unless they are tested. Because
I believe so, yeah.
They have a whole warehouse somewhere in New York where they have, I don't know, 100 people doing that, right?
I think so, yeah. I think it is a serious operation, yeah.
It is a serious operation. So what else surprised you in terms of the platforms? So you say Substack really has seen amazing growth in 2 years, doubling the number of paid subscribers, right? What about Beehive and the other one that I think they compete neck to neck? Don't know if you had the time to analyze them.
I actually don't have the figures for those, I'm afraid. It's a very good question.
Or the other ones, the platforms that offer the possibility for journalists to start their own independent outlet, or
so Substack was the main one that we looked at. I think probably we should do another piece kind of making sure that we've ranked or checked on all of those. As you said, especially as I would say there's maybe a very minor trend of creators leaving Substack as they get to a certain size, because Substack takes 10% of their subscription revenue. So obviously once you get bigger, that becomes a very sizable amount of your income, whereas other platforms like Ghost just take a one flat fee, so you it doesn't feel like you're getting penalized as much as you get bigger. But a theme though is that just the amount of major legacy publishers that have traditionally been free publishers that are realizing that a combination of advertising and subscriptions can be really beneficial to them. So for example, last year, Mail Online, or known as Daily Mail in the US, they've launched like a partial paywall on their website, one of the biggest websites in the world by audience size, but they thought we still need, we can monetize our core audience by doing these subscriptions, and that's proved really successful, and they've already got over 130,000 paying subscribers. And actually The Sun, another one of the UK's biggest news websites, has just started doing the same thing. So I think that's an interesting trend as well.
Very much so. And in magazines too, did you look, for instance, Wired magazine has a subscription that's like $5 per year in the first year, right? And then it goes to 29, which is not a lot for the year, right? To access the entire magazine. So, and of course, what they monetize, it's then the person, right, that's behind, because it's a certified real person, not a bot, not a troll. And they can sell advertising based on that, right?
Yeah, just having people either register for free or, ideally signed up and paying. They're just so much more valuable in every way, as you say, to advertisers as well as subscribers, being able to target them with all sorts of things and personalize things that will keep them as a much longer term user or reader with more lifetime value, basically. So quite a few magazines on here that either for their digital edition, which obviously is just a good way of monetizing rather than just having the print magazine, or a lot of as I say, a lot more paywalled websites now. I think it's become a lot more common to come across a paywall, and a lot more common for people to understand that value exchange and pay for it as well.
Yes, absolutely, because that's the real value, right? You know that there is a reader behind it, because this person had to put a credit card, a bot can't do that. So greater value for publicity, for selling advertising. And tell us a little bit the difference between UK and US.
So it's definitely been known for a while that the US is further ahead on subscriptions. There's a regular survey that comes out every year in terms of willingness of people in different countries to pay for news, and the UK is usually either bottom or kind of joint bottom or second bottom of that list. So I would say there's a lot of catching up to do here in the UK, but as I say, with the Mail and the Sun, it feels like that journey is beginning. And with things like Substack, there are more kind of locally focused new Substacks that have started that people are paying for, that are paying their journalists a wage. So I think we are now on that heading in the right direction in terms of, as I say, that value exchange. Whereas the US, a lot more of the legacy, I think a lot of them got there earlier. It's become a kind of a more established thing. Like, yes, there are still free brands as well, but I think probably more of the major ones and local brands as well are paid for, and people understand that.
So people in the UK tend not to want to pay for news. Is that what it is? Or they are ready to pay if it's legacy media like the Times or the FT, the Financial Times. And of course, The Guardian has a campaign. They keep it free, but they have this constant campaigns, right, ongoing whenever you access the site. So
yeah, you're right. All of those brands are on our list. And I with some of those that you mentioned, I think there is a theme on the list of there are quite a few kind of business or money or kind of financial focused ones. So Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Financial Times, The Economist, Money Control in India, Bloomberg, Business Insider, they all fit that. So I think when you feel like you're getting something of a particular value that will add to either your working life or your life, so money and finance are obviously a big area of that. Whereas so yeah, as you say, Financial Times and the Times here are two of the big ones, and the Telegraph. So I think it's kind of for longer they've had that quality less is more almost view on their audience, and it's paid off. Whereas others like the Sun, the Mirror, the Mail have for a longer time gone for, well, we just want a bigger audience, but that's where the shift is now happening.
Right, because the subscription model, it's better for advertisers in the end, right? In a way,
yeah.
A demographic like the FT, or Barron's or Bloomberg, right? You don't need millions of people. You need people who are working in finance, and that's a smaller number of people. So
yeah, and getting the right people rather than just anyone
Yes, you don't necessarily need people who are not working in finance or do not have an interest, right? So to wrap it up, tell us a little more about what you see happening in terms of these platforms, because we have Substack. Is there any other platform that offers similar services to Substack in the UK that's being homebrew, or because there are not many alternatives right now, it seems?
No, I think the ones you mentioned earlier are the main ones. So there's, for example, a local news startup called Mill Media in the UK, which has kind of successful or growing paid newsletters in like cities like Manchester and London and Glasgow, and they were on Substack and they've moved to Ghost in part because of the fees that I mentioned, and in part I think there are just they felt there were other kind of tech things that Ghost did better. But that's just an example that Substack and Ghost are almost the two main options. Beehive as well, I still see people on there, but yeah, there isn't really another
competitor, and they are both based in the US, the three of them, right? The three main ones. Interesting. And just one last question. Did you look into how they do agreements as well? Because they invite certain journalists to come and say, we'll pay you X amount for a year, assure you a salary similar to what you have. I know they've done agreements like this with Bloomberg journalists that decided to go over, right? Assuring them that they would have, whatever salary they had, that Bloomberg-based salary, 150,000 a year or so or more. And then they would match that and making sure that this person would bring its audience, right? Because the person came already with, 200,000 or 500,000 readers.
Yeah, I didn't look into that, to be honest.
No, because that is an interesting thing. I would love to know more about the economics. Suggesting a new research for you guys.
Yeah,
But
no,
economics of it, because it is like, many of the big ones are already arrived and they say, I will bring my audience. I have 300,000 people that follow my newsletter on Bloomberg, and I will come, and they give you, they cut a deal. And of course, in a year they get to keep whatever, and besides they get to keep what they make. But for both, it's a win-win when it works, right? Not everyone.
For sure.
Charlie Wurtzel, I think he was with the New York Times. Then he left the New York Times. He went to Substack, brought his audience, and then after a year, he was like, "Oh, I don't like this so much." And then he went back to work for the Atlantic, right? He was hired by the Atlantic. He's a tech columnist, a tech journalist.
There's definitely a common thing at the moment of journalists kind of going off on their own, and I do think that that's something that kind of the legacy publishers need to be thinking about right now, and making sure that they retain their top talent, or they'll just go.
Right, because they could perhaps already sell the top talent, right? Like Substack. I don't want to give anyone any ideas, but they could be monetizing it instead of Substack. But in any case, fantastic research, and I'm looking forward to more of it, because we need to know what's happening, right? Everything's changing so fast, and not so fast at the same time. So,
well, thank you very much for reading and taking interest.
Yes, I read the Press Gazette every time.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you so much, Charlotte.
Thank you as well. Lovely to meet you.
Yes, bye.